This video is brought to you by me. For $1 a month, you can support the channel directly and help me keep doing what I love. Thanks for watching and supporting. In 1999, a soon-to-be-purchased company called GT Interactive took their love of car chase scenes in movies and turned it into a game. In June of that year, Driver You Are the Wheelman released for PS1. You play as an undercover cop where you work your way up the wheelman ladder in order to prevent the assassination of the US president. It wasn't a racing game. There was no customization, no money to earn, or trophies to win. It was just you and your car. The game was really more focused on the thrill of the ride, letting the player find enjoyment through mastering the game's unique handling model. Granted, you could make it past the first level. This game's success spawned multiple sequels across a variety of platforms. However, performance issues, rushes to meet deadlines, and just bad directional shifts prevent these from being anything more than cult classics, and the series went on hiatus between the release of Driver Parallel Lines in 2006 and 2011. During that time, Ubisoft was working on a new Driver game, one that would return to the series' roots and put driving ahead of everything else. It might be hard to believe, but more than 10 years have passed since the last mainline Driver game, which is equally upsetting because the last one was the best the series had been in years. Despite critical acclaim and sales exceeding expectations, Ubisoft has once again put the series on ice, leaving no doubts about how the company feels about the surprising hit. In 2016, the game was delisted from all digital storefronts without so much as a word why, although it can be inferred that vehicle licensing likely expired. Rather than renewing the license, they killed the game entirely a mere 5 years after it was released. The only way to play currently is through a physical copy of the game on Xbox 360 or PS3. To add insult to injury, Ubisoft killed all online access to the game in September of 2022, meaning that multiplayer is inaccessible as well any of the DLC you might have paid for. In retrospect, it's really surprising to me how good this game was, only for the company to not capitalize on its success. The highs this game hit ultimately surmounted to nothing, as it squandered any momentum the Driver games could have had going forward. It's really surprising to me how good this game was, only for Ubisoft to not capitalize on its success. In many ways, Driver SF feels like the game the series was always striving to be, while providing fan service for the loyal fans and unique gameplay loops for people looking for a good game about driving cars. Detective John Tanner, the protagonist from Drivers 1, 2, and 3, returns as the main character once again. After finally putting Jack Nicholson behind bars for his smug attitude, Tanner and his partner Tobias Jones can finally rest. That is, until mercenary for hire Layla Sharon busts him out of a police transport. A high-speed pursuit follows, and the event that sets the rest of the game in motion occurs. After falling into a trap, the hunter becomes the hunted, with Tanner and Jones ahead of Jericho's armored van, cornered in an alleyway. As Jericho pushes the yellow Challenger into intersecting traffic, an 18-wheeler T-bones the detectives, sending Tanner into a coma. 90% of the game takes place within the confines of Tanner's mind. Tanner just doesn't realize it. Within his compromised mental state, he carries on as normal, outside of a few giveaways that something is wrong. In his dream, Tanner drives away from the crash, but as he continues, he can hear what sounds like paramedics taking a defibrillator to a patient. As the charge pulses through Tanner's body, it enables his inner consciousness to shift out of his own body and inhabit other drivers on the road. From his coma, Tanner chips away at the Jericho case, using the information he knows about the criminal to piece together his motives. Driver San Francisco takes the structure of a serialized detective show like Starsky and Hutch. The game takes place in chapters where each one has a season-changing event that pushes the narrative forward incrementally, while each episode is a side mission. One week, you'll be taking over a body of a street racer who's trying to earn money for college, until he and his brother get a taste for victory and get in too deep with the racing scene. Another week, you'll be assisting police officers who try to defuse bombs strapped to tankers. Because the game takes place in Tanner's head, the in-game currency willpower isn't much of a factor. And since any car on the street is at your disposal, you might be wondering why you'd bother saving up the willpower to buy cars at all. Much of the side content relies on cars Tanner owns at the multiple garages in San Francisco instead of being given a car. The challenges let you use a vehicle from your collection. This gives you the incentive to save up WP to expand your garage and get faster and faster cars that will start showing up on the streets when they are unlocked. It's mostly optional, but if you delve into all the content on offer, you are adding hours of gameplay to your playtime. Every time you start up the game or finish a chapter, you are treated with a "Previously on Driver San Francisco" video that fills you in on the story so far, making it easy to jump back into the game if you put the game down for a while. After Driver 1, the devs start building more and more on top of the core of what the series was, while keeping one thing consistent: the driving. I don't care how bad the rest of the Driver games get, you can always count on the driving. Without it, I would never have finished the narrative nightmare that was Parallel Lines. So what makes Driver's mechanics so good? A constant theme of Driver is going undercover as a wheelman, driving unflashy cars that keep you incognito. The cars you choose from aren't performance vehicles, and so taking them at high speed around corners means you feel like you're pushing these machines to their limits, the shocks barely hanging on, which is more than can be said about the hubcaps. In Driver SF, you once again focus on driving inconspicuous cars, whether you're tailing someone or warping into a criminal's body to use them as a mole in Jericho's organization. And because you can warp into any driver on the San Francisco streets, you will be driving a ton of low-end commuter cars like a VW Beetle, both old and new, Dodge Neons, and mass transit vehicles like buses or taxis. There are higher-end cars like Lamborghinis and Aston Martins, but your time in those are few and far between in the main game. But what's cool about Driver as a whole is how fun it makes driving these normal vehicles, even the 18-wheeler. The shift mechanics also change how you solve challenges. Say you're trying to incapacitate a car on the run. Instead of chasing it and ramming it, why not shift into a different vehicle heading the opposite direction and have it cross a few lanes of traffic to hit the pursued vehicle head on? Sometimes it feels too easy, and the game basically tells you to do that if you're taking more than a minute to do it yourself. But in some cases, the game challenges you to defend a vehicle from multiple pursuants, meaning you have to shift as fast as possible to protect your target vehicle. The shift mechanic also acts as your map, allowing you to see the city from progressively higher vantage points as you unlock new levels of it. San Francisco is huge, and there is so much to do. I normally don't talk about collectibles, but when they are as cool as they are here, it's hard not to mention them. In the same way that the story feels like an homage to buddy cop shows of decades past, the game leans into its influence from movies as well. Scattered through the city are movie tokens. For every 10 you grab, you unlock access to a special challenge that is ripped straight from a classic movie scene. There are challenges from the Blues Brothers, Gone in 60 Seconds, The Italian Job, and more. And one of the greatest Easter eggs of all time comes from hitting 88 miles per hour in the DeLorean and unlocking the first level from Driver 1. This is a great example of how you can add substance to references without making them feel hollow. Driver San Francisco felt like the purest form of what the series could be. Strip away the BS and give the players what they come here for: great car handling mechanics. I don't know when we'll see a new Driver game, but I hope it's sooner rather than later. Driver San Francisco feels like a natural conclusion for what would be the formula for the Driver series, and it's a shame that Ubisoft seems to agree that it's also the conclusion, but for the series as a whole. Thanks for watching it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. If you liked the video, hit the like button, it helps me out a ton. Did you play Driver San Francisco? What did you think of it, and what is your favorite Driver game? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe, and lastly, if you want to support the channel directly, consider sending this to someone who would appreciate it, or going to the link in the description to check out my Patreon. For $1 a month, you get early access to my videos. I'd like to take a minute and thank my higher tier patrons: Kaylee, Kudahori, Andrew Donahoe, Andrew Elmore, Benjamin, BBF and Bloxburg, Just Jessica, Conjo, and Okayla. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.
Whoa! Hey, back in the bed, my man.
I need car keys.
You need pants.